Hello, I'm Sevil Mikhailova.
And I'm Claude Salhani, and this is This Week in Focus.
Last week was very exciting with the news about Iran. P5+1 at least came to an agreement with Iran at a table of talks in Switzerland.
Last week was indeed exciting. It could mean that the end of sanctions, 30 years of sanctions against Iran. That's quite historic. And it may change the whole face of the region. 30
years living under sanctions. This is a long period, and even people in Iran have accustomed to live under these sanctions. And I think it will be very strange for them even to live now, to take out the sanctions.
I'm sure they won't regret the sanctions. That's one certainty. They will not regret the sanctions. They maybe have gotten used to living under them, but I don't think any country can actually enjoy living under such conditions.
At least they kicked this historic milestone, and at least Iran will be free from these sanctions.
Now, that's still not a done deal completely, because they sign in June. There's a lot that can happen between now and June.
But I think they will sign, Claude, because there is high enthusiasm on both sides.
Yes, but don't forget that there are parties that don't want this to happen because they don't trust Iran keeping to its word about giving up its military aspect of its nuclear program. So there's people in the United States, in Obama's own country, that are very much opposed. The Republicans, the right wing is very much opposed to seeing this happen. Israel is opposed to seeing it happen. They don't trust Iran, so that's what I'm saying.
I understand these fears, but look at it from the energy aspect, and I think that there is no disagreement between the sides, and especially those who are gazing on Iranian rich oil and gas market, oil and gas potential, and they are eager to sign this deal, and I think it will happen.
I think it will happen, but I'm just saying we have to be cautious because a lot can go wrong between now and then. And even after that, things can still happen. So anyway, having said that, the sanctions against the Islamic Republic were a serious obstacle to peace. So maybe this is the beginning. This is just the opening the door to a new beginning.
I think this is the door for beginning of new cooperation. I hoped it to bring peace, and I hoped it to revitalize life in this country.
Let's hope so. We are joined today by Sam Barden, who is the director of Wimpole International, an energy market development company. He's in Australia right now. And Sam, thank you for taking the time to join us. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. My first question to you is the following. Should we expect a big flow of foreign investments following the lifting of the sanctions in Iran?
Yeah, I think we'll definitely see capital flows coming into Iran. Just from the stock market perspective alone, you've got only 0.5% of foreign ownership of the Iranian stock market. So you'll see a lot of frontier funds, emerging market funds, wanting to get in quickly. And so I would expect that we'd see some flow of capital coming in that way. But I also would expect that we might see some flow of capital leaving Iran as well. So there's probably going to be a healthy two-way flow. But certainly there's no question that we'll see some foreign capital flowing into Iran through the stock market and into direct investment as well, of course.
And what about its implications on Azerbaijan?
Well, I think from the point of view of hydrocarbons, Azerbaijan and Iran, I think really the area that we're talking about is the Caspian, and I think what we can expect is, if we have cooperation between the countries, then I think the impact for Azerbaijan will be positive, and for Iran will be positive as well. But I think if we have competition on hydrocarbon resources and sales in that region, then it could get a bit more difficult because Iran's got a lot of hydrocarbons, and they've got a lot of people that want their hydrocarbons, particularly their gas. Pakistan, India, Oman, and of course Europe. So if the literal nations of the Caspian region, which obviously includes Iran and Azerbaijan, if they decide to cooperate in certain frameworks, particularly I think in pricing of gas into the international markets, then I think it'll be very positive for Azerbaijan.
How do you think, how will it affect the global energy markets, this removal of sanctions? So Iran is joining to this gas race.
Again, I would say that it'll definitely affect global energy markets because we'll see more Iranian oil and gas flowing into markets that previously they haven't been able to, which, and I think predominantly we're talking about Europe here. Asian markets have been pretty healthily supplied with Iranian oil and gas throughout. But I think also, we'll get more price stability because one of the issues with the sanctions is you've had Asian customers coming into Iran and getting oil and gas at cheaper than market prices. So we'd expect that to be removed. And I think that, again, if we see cooperation, and Iran's very much in the mode for cooperation, particularly with foreign companies wanting to come in and access the hydrocarbon resources in Iran, but also, again, in the Caspian and some of the products like, gas swaps or oil swaps from the Caspian through Iran to southern Iran and export. There could be some very interesting developments and very positive developments for the global energy markets, and I think we'll get much better security of supply, and I think we'll start to see some efficiency drives in the production side.
Sam, do you see, with the removal of the sanctions, do you see the perspective of Iran joining the southern gas corridor?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue for Iran, as with many oil producers, is they want to have as much control over the pricing of their oil and gas as possible. And I think Iran certainly would look at joining the Southern Energy Corridor as long as it didn't take away from their ability in pricing their oil and gas. So there are some competing pipelines along there, and you've also got people that already like Soccer have big stakes in some of those pipelines. And I also think you've got the Russian equation there. So there will have been a lot going on between Iran and Russia already, and some agreements with that, particularly, we had South Stream, and that's morphed into this sort of Turk Stream pipeline. So definitely Iranian gas wants to access Europe. Under what conditions and how that happens, I think that's probably, remains to be seen at the moment. I think Iran will certainly be in a cooperative mood, but they'll be pretty tough negotiators because ultimately they want to have as much control as over their pricing. And so we might see the emergence of a Caspian price hub for gas, for example.
How do you view the perspectives for Iran's joining to TANAP? So can it express its desire to buy a share in TANAP?
Yeah, again, I think it can, and these things are all negotiable, and it would be an option for Iran to buy into that. And some of that gas from the Caspian oil fields would flow through there. So, but again, it's going to come down to the terms in which they buy them, and most importantly, the mechanism that's used to price the gas that's going into it.
Sam, let me ask you this: do you think that this will hold? Do you think that the agreement will be respected by both?
Sanctions?
Yes.
Yeah,
No. I mean the agreement to lift the sanctions on the nuclear agreement.
Yeah, I have, my view is probably a little bit different, but I think that the US needed to do this deal more than anybody else because they're really fighting for relevance to some extent. There's no question that Europe and European countries want to do business with Iran.
Yeah.
Clearly, Asian countries do, and I think that in terms of energy security. I think the pressure is on America to make it work much more than it was on Iran to make it work. And I think going forward, there's still a lot of steps and there's quite a balancing act. But I think certainly, from Obama's point of view, the American president, he's clearly very committed to making this work. But he's got a lot of opposition within his own country and obviously from the right side of politics in America there as well. But, I think I think we'll definitely get a result here, and I think that if US decide not to lift sanctions or there's some hiccups, I think you're going to see other markets starting to pop up around the sanctions, and Europe, particularly starting to say, well, we're just not going to be part of those sanctions anymore. And I think, the best example out there is the Asian Infrastructure Bank that's been announced, and a lot of people have all of a sudden joined, particularly in Europe, with Britain and France and Italy and Spain. And now Australia's going back to join them, having said no. And a lot of that was pressure from the United States not wanting people to join, and they're joining. So I think the world's changing, and people want to get on. People want energy security, and Iran clearly wants to swap energy for technology with Europe.
And how do you think, so there are two sides, so Iran and the Western sides, who put sanctions on Iran for 30 years. Now, after 30 years, the two sides are coming to a table of talks, and now they are speaking about cooperation. And what are your views about the future of this cooperation? Will it benefit both sides, or there still will be somehow offenses in both sides?
No, I think there's no question cooperation will benefit both sides, and I think the era of energy competition is ending, and the era of energy cooperation is what we're looking at now. And Iran's definitely shown lots of signs for cooperation. I mean, you look at the announced IPC, the Iranian Petroleum Contract. The way they've set that up is very cooperative. It's very flexible, and a lot of the information flow that we're seeing, and certainly my experience, when I travel to Iran and I meet companies and I meet banks and stock exchange, and it's very, very welcoming, very cooperative, really knocking on open doors to a large extent. And I think there's a lot of groundwork's been done, certainly by European companies, clearly by Asian companies, with Iran as to, what areas they want to cooperate on, across industry, agriculture, hydrocarbons, metals, mining. There's a lot to do there.
Now, with this lifting of sanctions, a big player comes to surfaces in the market. So how do you think, and how do you view the future of the region then? Right.
Yeah, I think the future's bright. I think Iran will be a dominant player. I think they'll be a very cooperative player. I think they'll cooperate very closely with other regional players, including Saudi Arabia, obviously the UAE, Oman, the literal members of the Caspian. I think it's a positive outlook, and I think we'll see the big energy companies, certainly from the US and Europe, coming in and cooperating and working together as well. And I think we'll see markets whereby, energy cooperation and energy savings, as opposed to just mining for new energy all the time, is what people are after, and that swap for carbon fuel saved, if you like, for technology will be a very valuable trade into the 21st century, no question.
Sam Barden, I thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us. And,
thank you very much.
Have a great day. Are we optimistic? Are we pessimistic? What's the general?
I am optimistic. I think that big player is coming on scene, and we'll see the positive results very soon.
Well, I'm glad you're optimistic, because I'm a little bit pessimistic, because I think that historically, the region, whenever anything could go wrong, went wrong. There's still a lot that can go wrong. There's still a lot of people who are opposed to this happening, and will try and derail it. Let's hope you're right. Let's hope that you are right, that I'm wrong, that it's optimism all around. Let's hope this brings a better tomorrow.
Goodbye.